sixth grade. Oh, I went too far, excuse me. Seventh and eighth grade. Seventh and eighth grade students, of course, will be housed at Pocahontas Middle School. We met with the junior high staff on Thursday, let them know what the plans are for moving and that they will be moving over to the to the middle school. We've sent letters home to those students. We mailed those letters home because seventh and eighth grade students aren't as reliable about sending communication home in backpacks, so we mailed those letters home. But we have sent that notification home as well. Answered a lot of questions about moving. Mr. Tibbs is meeting with his staff tomorrow to give them their room assignments at the middle school for next year, and talk a little bit more about the move. We have contracted or in the process of contracting with Hildreth Movers, who did the move last time we did this big change when the high school opened, and we're going to be working with them again. We're going to have boxes that we sent to each of the teachers with labels so that we can accomplish this move with minimal impact on the staff. Sixth grade, again, we talked about at one point when we first discussed this plan with the sixth grade moving down to all three elementary schools. At some point early in this year, end of last year, we started looking at the opportunity of keeping the sixth grade together. And that was mainly to make sure that we have the full course offerings for those sixth grade students. Having them split between three schools and trying to offer all the electives that we offer sixth grade would have been very, very difficult without increasing staff. So we found out that we did have a room at Pocahontas Elementary for some of the sixth grade classrooms, and of course some at the middle school. This is our current split, that we will have 8 homerooms at Pocahontas Elementary School and 4 homerooms at Pocahontas Middle School. The core content will be taught at each of those locations, but then all students, the ones at Pocahontas Elementary, will come over to the middle school for their elective courses as well as for lunch. And Mr. Tibbs and Dr. Prince have been working on that schedule. 90% of the students will have to make that trip once, but there's one small cohort of students that will have to make it twice on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I believe, but not Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays. But we've got it to where there's going to be minimal movement between the buildings. But there will be some movement, as there always is when you do a renovation.
And they'll be escorted across? I mean, is that?
We're working on that on escorting, but certainly safety is something that we're cognizant of, and making sure that they're safe. So we'll have staff there that will be with them, and we've placed them, as you'll see when we have the map, at a place that's pretty convenient for them to just leave the building without going through the elementary school and bothering the elementary school. But yes, they will be escorted, or at least staff out there supervising them.
Okay, thank you.
The other sixth grade, as I said earlier, health and PE, other elective classes taught at the middle school. We will have a full-time administrator at Pocahontas Elementary School that will be responsible for the sixth grade students there. That'll be Martha Powers. She'll also have clerical assistants over there, so that we'll have a full-time administrator there, so as we don't overburden the Pocahontas Elementary administrative staff, that will be plenty of busy with the K-5 students or pre-K-5 students there. Sixth grade students will all be on the same bell schedule as the seventh and eighth grade students, starting approximately 7:45, ending at 2:37. They will ride the same buses. Mr. Johns and Ms. Gwaltney and I have met yesterday to look at transportation and schedules. We're using TransFinder to run some of those new routes and to make sure we have efficient routes, but also routes that we're not overcrowded. So we'll have that information in the next month that will be done and hopefully can start to be communicated. Elementary students will ride kindergarten through, or K-5 students will ride the elementary buses. We're also looking at how we can be efficient. We've gotten some feedback from the elementary teachers, elementary staff, about the elementary day ending so late at 4 o'clock and students not getting home until 5 or 5:15. We know that we'll be able to capture at least 15 minutes so that we can move the elementary day back earlier 15 minutes. I know we can do it, Ms. Gwaltney, because we're going to have one less stop. Instead of those buses going to the junior high and dropping off and then going to the middle school and dropping off, they just have to go one school. So we're confident that we can get 15 minutes and move that back earlier in the day, which is something that I know the elementary staff will appreciate. Grade configurations are there. On this slide, you can see everybody's pre-K through 5. Powhatan Elementary is just going to be kindergarten through 5. Right now, Head Start is over there, but we're going to be moving them to Pocahontas Elementary to keep all that pre-K together. And Powhatan Elementary just has room for the kindergarten through 5, with room for a little bit of growth, but not for the whole Head Start program. Pocahontas Middle will be grades 6 through 8, and the high school, of course, will stay 9 through 12. Talked a little bit about this, but we will be hiring Hildreth movers to move the furniture belongings of the staff. We are encouraging staff to purge, and encouraging it over and over again. Those of you who have been teachers or know teachers know that they are hoarders and pack rats, and we don't want to move materials that they're not going to be using in the near future. So we've been encouraging them to move as much as they can to recycle it. We will be providing boxes and labels. Our priority will be to get everything out of the junior high school so that we can start demolition on that at the beginning of July, and then we'll be doing the moves in the other schools throughout the summer. We will certainly allow teachers back in the buildings as we've done in the past during the summer, so that they want to come back early and set up their classroom. If they have a new classroom, they can certainly do that as well. And that is it. And then we had a couple, I don't know if you saw them when you came in, but there are a couple maps that have the middle school and Pocahontas Elementary that show kind of where the grade levels are going to be and where classes are going to be. So we wanted you to be able to see those. So when you have a chance, you can look at those. If you have any questions, let us know. But this is kind of what we're thinking now in terms of where grade levels and classes will be at both of those buildings, since those will be the buildings that will have the most significant change occurring in them. Questions?
I have a question
Sure.
about the, at one
Thank you.
point in time, I don't know if it's, there still are, that we use the junior high, like where the ag department is, or part of that maintenance, where that maintenance, anyway, I'm not sure what it was called, but there was surplus furniture and everything. Is that still there, or do we not have any anymore? Is it all gone? It's all gone. Okay, so we don't have any of our own pack ratty stuff that we need to get rid of? No?
We have, yeah,
It's minimal.
yeah. We have some things that, we've been using some trailers that haven't been used for classrooms for some storage, so we'll have to clean those out. We're gonna move some staff, support staff, our educational specialists are gonna be moving to a trailer because they're currently in the junior high school.
Right.
So they'll be moving to a trailer behind Powhatan Elementary. But we do have some cleanup that we will need to do. We'll also be going through all the furniture at the junior high school, what the teachers don't want to move and take with them. We'll certainly be going through that, keeping the best of it that we have, that we need, and then looking to sell or surplus the rest of it.
Okay.
Ms. Emo?
And what about summer school? Obviously, it won't be at the middle school or
It's going to be at,
Pocahontas.
yes, ma'am, it'll be at Flat Rock in the high school.
Flat Rock and High School.
Yep.
Okay. And I also wanted to know, what is the capacity? I think it was the first slide showed the numbers. So how close are we to the capacity numbers?
We have room at all the elementary schools. The middle school's at 1061 now, but what's forecast is to be that we're at a bubble right now of higher enrollment at the middle school, and then that's going to go down. So the numbers that we have don't show us going over 1,100 students through 2025 in the middle school. So we've got 10
Plenty of
years of
time,
capacity
okay.
based on what our current projections are. And the school, again, is designed and programmed for 1,200 students.
And then what about the 3 elementaries?
I don't have that data in front of me, Ms. Emo. I'll have
Okay.
to.
I mean,
I'll
is
get
it, do we, like, are we like really, really close?
No,
That we
we
still have room to grow?
We have room to grow in the elementary schools. I have talked to Ms. Weiler. We are putting a new elementary school into the long-range CIP plan in 2025, 2026, just to have it there as a placeholder. And we've also are including the wing addition for the high school that was originally designed as part of the high school to accommodate another 250 students, and the wing addition at the middle school that will hold another 200 students. We're placing those in the CIP because the county wants to make sure that that's a long-range need and that proffers can be collected to help meet those long-range needs. But what our projections show us at this time is that we have capacity in all 4 buildings without any additions to get us through 2025, which is far out as we've taken projections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In terms of, I mean, having lived through the other move a few years ago, you know, I can attest to the fact that teachers do take far more stuff than they really need. And Mr. Tibbs was around, so he knows that too. But the stuff that's left behind,
Mhm.
you know, is it possible we could set a date? You know, I know it's gonna be tight anyway, but could we set a date like 3 or 4, you know, however long it takes us to get everything out, maybe 4 or 5 days back, and let the public walk through and do like a silent auction thing and let them, you know, because we never can sell any of that stuff
Right.
anyway.
Right.
But if somebody has some emotional attachment to a desk they sat in 1968, then they can certainly come back and get it. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, there's no good way to get it out,
Right.
but if the public could help
Clean
remove
it
some
out
of it,
some, yeah.
I don't, it may not be worthwhile, but I don't,
We'll look into it and see. Thank you.
And maybe there's doors or that are in good condition that a builder might want to
Right.
give us some money for, or I don't, you know,
Yep.
construction people.
I mean, there's gonna be some furniture that we're not going to need, because we've got furniture in the middle school classrooms now, and the contract for the new middle school includes new furniture, so we're not gonna need all the furniture there, so there may be other school districts that are in need of desks and chairs that may wanna come and pick up a truckload of them, and we'll certainly make that available.
For a reduced price, but still a price,
Yes,
right?
a fair
Okay.
price.
Fair price.
and the trailers, does anybody come forward to want those? I remember a few years ago, we gave some away to a school division that needed them, but
Yeah, we have we've had to take back a trailer that PYAA was using to store some football equipment to put our educational specialists in. So there may be a need they may be interested. We've allowed the Christmas Mother to be in the junior high school for the last couple of years because they got kicked out of the War Memorial. So they may be interested in a trailer. We'll make those available. But what anybody who wants a trailer needs to know is moving it, rehooking it up, providing power, and that is almost as expensive as the trailer. So we need to keep it in mind, but we can certainly make it available. Ms. Himmel, did you have
Yeah.
somebody else?
But remember I had asked you, there was a church that was interested
Right.
in one too?
Yep.
But you had said that we were waiting till the end
Right.
before we knew, but.
We're gonna see which trailers that we're gonna need long-term, and there certainly could be some extra trailers. There's some at the junior high right now. We're gonna move the adult ed trailer to the high school and have, not adult ed, alternative ed, to the high school, because right now it's at the junior high school. So we're looking at moving that outside of the building of the high school, but having those students there at the high school, we think that may encourage more students to come, and that we can still keep them separated from the general high school population. So we're looking at that as well. But long story short, we'll have some trailers that, if anybody wants them, we'll certainly make them available.
So then are we going to be putting people on a list, but we'll just tell them it'll be after?
We'll
Couple
have
years.
to do some sort of surplus, if we did end up surplus or sale, auction or something.
Right.
So we'll make it a fair process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Thank you. All right, the next item that we have is, there have been some questions about the check registers for our, how we post that information. So Mr. Johns has developed some information, posted it on board docs, but he wanted to go through it with you, answer any questions that you have, and talk about what we've done at this point to make this important financial information more readily available to the community.
Yes, good evening. First, you know, just for the public's understanding, our check registers have always been presented to the school board for review and approval. I mean, that's a requirement under the Code of Virginia, and we've always done that. But then in 2013, when we implemented board docs and had the online program for public access, the check registers have been included on those under the bill list, and so that's helped provide the public more transparency on these. Then, starting in April 2015, and this is as a result of many questions from this board, we started putting those not just in a PDF format, but also in an Excel format so that it is a searchable document. This agenda item has one attachment on it, and it is basically if you could bring that up for me, please. It's the Finance Department website. Up until just a week or two ago, the public access was to go into board docs and look at each agenda item and see our check registers there. But as we look at other school division websites and see, they have these also on the Finance Department website. So I've set these up on the Finance Department website so the public can go in and see them in two different ways. If you look at the first asterisk on here, what I did is we set up a full year's worth of our check registers on there all in one document rather than just having them month to month. So the plan going forward is that we will do each month, and the second item has two asterisks. Those are linked to board docs, and so you can look at them both there. And so we will, each month, you'll be able to get to the month that we've completed. When we complete this fiscal year, we'll go run a report for the full year so the public can go back in time and look at a full year and then look at them on a month basis as we go forward. And the full year one can be brought up in a PDF, or it can be brought up in Google Docs and searchable in an Excel format as well. So we've made that change since the last board meeting. And I'd like to go on because there've been some questions, both this board and I've heard the Board of Supervisors make comments about Goochland's website and their check register. I went on and looked at what they have in their check register, and what Goochland is doing is they are pulling data from both the accounts payable module, which is where our check register comes from, and data from the general ledger module that has the accounting classifications and the description, for example, classroom instruction, the description of that, merging that together. For us to do that manually is going to take us about 4 hours time per check register, and typically we will have 2 or 3 check registers with each board report. The other option is to coordinate with our vendor and get them to write a special report for us that will pull from those 2 modules, because it's not a standard report. And I have contacted RDA, which is our financial system vendor, and am waiting on them to come back to me with a cost for doing that. And so once we know that cost, we'll be able to make a decision if it's a reasonable amount that we could go forward and do that, so that we could provide more information, as many of you have asked for. And so that's where we are with that.
Any questions?
Well, I wanted to say thank you, especially the tabs under the Finance Department, because I think that's where a lot of the public was confused and didn't know. We know where to find the bills and receipts, but they didn't know. So I think that's a really huge step, and I thank you for thinking of that and doing that. I also noticed some things on the register are obvious. You know, when the description of them, and that's why I was thinking of categorizing, because like if you have, by the fund, by the account, because then it's pretty much obvious that this all goes to transportation, or this all goes to conference and travel, and the different headings. Do you know what I'm saying? And
I
I
do,
think
I
that,
do.
okay, and I think that really helps, it makes it easy. And so we need, what I was thinking is the account number, so we can show where the spend is charged to. And my whole idea is to make this easy and very clear to be read and transparent, because to me, this is used, we can use this as an educational tool. Because when I have a constituent who asks about something, like someone will say to me, a parent will say, well, gosh, our school hasn't gotten any new technology or laptops or whatever, and I can simply say, well, yes, I know, because I saw in the bills and receipts that this went to that. And when I was asking questions, I use the bills and receipts as to learn about what we're purchasing and what we're, not to question what we're purchasing, but to know what we are purchasing and to, as an educational tool. And I just think we need more public support. And this would be, I believe we would get it if we, because we have nothing to hide. So why wouldn't we
Right.
be out there as much as we can? And that's the whole reason for doing this, I feel. Thank you.
And I have asked the vendor in my request to them that they provide us options on this report. One would be program, which would tell us whether it is elementary education, secondary education, special ed, or transportation, or whatever. And the other is for it to be cost center, meaning one school versus another. And another is also for it to be fund, meaning is it general fund, is it Title I, Title II, food service, and that kind of stuff. So hopefully their response is that the cost won't be too great, because I think it would be nice to be able to run this report and give you, the board, and the public what they want. So I'll let you know.
Well, thank you, Mr. Johns. I appreciate your work with this.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Sure.
Mr. Johns, let me say first, thank you. I appreciate you putting this together, because what I kept hearing was us being compared to other counties. Goochland particularly was the example that I kept repeatedly heard us being compared to. And I think this looks and feels kind of like Goochland's approach, and I think that that's good. Could I ask you, and when I go through and the hyperlinks that you've embedded in the page, they point you towards the board doc itself and towards that particular page out of the agenda from that night. Can you tell me, and I imagine you probably had a conscious reason, but why did you do it that way rather than point it specifically towards the Excel document that had that list for that particular evening?
We could do it. We could set it up on this page as well. It's just that we already, have the document set there, and it's just saving it in two different places.
So is your hyperlink going to board docs and
It
not to
is.
the document itself? Is
It's
that
going,
right?
it's going to,
Okay.
it's going, no, the hyperlink goes to the document in board docs. So,
Well, when you open the hyperlink, it opens board docs, and you have displayed the agenda and the agenda item, and then you have the attachments to the agenda, rather than opening the document itself. And I guess when I first looked at it, what I thought I was going to see was that particular month's
right, okay.
budget document open up, but
I
instead it sort
understand
of
what you're
points you to the
saying.
agenda.
Well, we can take a look at that and see if we can make that link more direct.
One comment I would make, just from a data standpoint, the less sources you have for a given piece of information, the better off you are.
Right.
And I would caution against propagating an Excel list of bills and then having originals, quote,
Right.
in multiple locations, because then it always invites the possibility that they get out of sync with each other, and people will, get erroneous information. So I would advocate, picking one location, and that's where all of these links go to. If it happens to be board docs, then so be it, but that would be my advice for that.
Right.
And Mr. Chairman, I would agree with what you just said. And I think the only reason that I asked you the question that I did was I just kept repeatedly hearing this idea, ease of use. We want ease of use to be able to look at how the money is
Right,
being spent.
right.
And that was sort of what I was suggesting to you.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment. I would like the public to use board docs, and
Right.
having this directed to board docs will make the public use board docs, so they'll have access to everything we do, just not our bills.
Right.
So
a good
it
idea.
does make the public use our system a
Board
little
docs,
bit
yeah.
more.
Good point.
Well, and two more comments about other systems. The one system we've mentioned already, they're only keeping just about a year's worth on a monthly basis. They're not doing what I did of setting up for a year and, and then keeping multiple years. And also, that one locality, it's not being done by the school system, it's being done by the county. So when you go to the finance department's website there and select the check register, it takes you to the county website, because they're the ones that are doing it for them. But, we'll
Is-
hopefully
is-
be able to get it done.
Well, is that something that we should be doing?
They don't have our detailed data, we have to
They
do
have
Oh,
it
because we have the
ourselves.
two different systems
Right,
again.
right. We have
Can
to
we
do
talk
it.
a little bit about that, just in that, so the public understands that, because I didn't know this. There's two, would you please?
I'll let Mr. Johns, he
Oh,
knows a
okay.
lot more
Or,
about
you
it
know,
than
all
I
right.
do, but yes.
Would you say what that's all about?
Well, the county uses one financial system for all of their data, and it's called Bright. They've been on it a long, long time. The school division's been on RDA, which is, and we've been on it for a very, very long time as well. And so those two systems are not interfaced at all. And so one of the tasks that we have to do throughout the year, and particularly at the end of the year when the county is issuing financial statements, is to make sure that our system and their system match to the penny on our revenues and expenditures. And so some localities are all on the same system, and so you really don't have to do as much coordination of your balances and all your accounts. You still, as an account holder, have to look at it and make sure it's all right and everything was done right. But you just don't have to balance the two out, which we do.
And we have had conversations with the county staff, Mrs. Weiler and her staff, about the benefits of being on one financial system, and expressed our willingness to move to that direction. At this point, it has not come through as a priority in Ms. Weiler's budget. And I don't think it's because she doesn't think it's important, it's just there are a lot of needs out there, and financial systems are very costly. But we'll continue to mention it to her. I think it would cut down a lot on the time that both financial staffs have to spend on reconciling and matching up. But there is some upfront cost that would be significant.
And so are both systems very antiquated? Do we know how old they are, or?
I don't know how old Bright is. I know some localities have been on it over 20 years. I don't know how long Powhatan County has been on it. RDA has been around since the 80s. But both of these systems have been updated, and RDA does what we need it to do. It is not as user-friendly as other systems I've used, and that's my only complaint about RDA. But it does what we need it to do. And so the vendor
think our-
has updated it.
I think our big complaint with RDA is that, for instance, the report that Larry was mentioning earlier, it would be nice if we could go in and create that own report when we see a need for it. And some
Right.
of the newer systems, you have that flexibility to do that. We don't with RDA. We have to call RDA and ask them to do it and then pay them for programming that new report. So that would be the benefit of moving to a more modern system, that it would allow us more flexibility to provide quicker information and how we present the information in a more, an easier format for people to see.
And that's what I think the Goochland School Board member was telling me, is how they're able to get reports quickly, and that they're able to use that to show the Board of Supervisors when they need to, or their own staff. And I think that maybe it's something we can put on our list for one of our joint meetings. Not this month, of course, we have a lot of pressing other things, but maybe it's something we could talk about as two boards and to see where, but I like your idea of starting and trying these ideas that we have right now, but maybe in the future we could do that.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. I guess, once again, just a closing comment, I'm going to caution against any change of a system. I'm involved with a change of the purchasing system at a corporation, which was not our choice, and reporting is the buzzword, and getting ease of reports, but it always seems to come to make reports easier for one small group of people. It comes at the expense of everybody using it and everybody who has to touch it. So, we have to keep that in mind too. Change isn't always good, just for the sake of change. It just got to be necessary.
I hear you loud and clear. I've done quite a few of them, and I do understand that there will be many people screaming if we ultimately do change.
And I know in previous location that I worked, we went through a major financial system change, both the county and the school system, and we ended up having to hire additional staff during that interim to come in and train everybody. So there was a huge upfront cost from a staff and training standpoint, as well as learning the system, and there was probably 2 years of pain associated with it, but you certainly have the long-range payoff of the benefits of a new updated system. So I think you just have to weigh those factors in making a decision.
Thank you.
I think Goochland's pain was 1 year, he said, as
Okay.
far as an extra staff member, because you have to put in all the input of the information or something, and then after that, it was, they said it was very good and easy for them to do.
That might have been a report change. Goochland is still on Bright, and they are working on an RFP now to go out to bid to potentially switch systems.
I think Ms. Emo specifically talking about BudgeGen, which they
The school
generate
board.
budget documents with.
Right, the school board
Not their
one,
financial
yeah.
system as a
Okay,
whole.
okay.
Because that school board member happens to be an accountant. So that's why I, found it very interesting, and, being a professional, he seemed to, that's his profession. So that's why I thought I'd bring it to our board so that we could see if that would work for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a good job. Thank you very much.
Next item is a budget update for next fiscal year. I will pull up the revenue and expenditure summary analysis. This has not changed dramatically from the last time that we had a budget workshop. There are 2 changes on here that I do want to point out to you. The first one is we did get the final increase for health insurance, and as I've told you previously, it went up higher than we anticipated. It's a 10% increase, so our line items now reflect that. We did lock in on our fuel contract, and that'll be approved at tonight's meeting, but because we had some savings, we were able to absorb that 10% increase as opposed to the 7.2 that we were originally estimating. And again, that was an estimate based on our consultant's information. Just so you're aware, they came back originally at 13%. Right, 13.1, and we were able to negotiate, or David Rowe, our consultant, was able to get them down to 10%. So that's still quite an increase. So right now, we've included that in our budget for just the employer share, not employee share. But that is something that we're certainly open to getting feedback on. We currently still provide a smaller percentage of healthcare premiums than the county does. So if the board wanted us to take a look at that, we could certainly look at minimizing that impact for our employees of the 10% increase if that was the pleasure of the board.
Is the county on the same plan? Or
They are.
So they'll get a 10% increase? too?
They will have a 10% increase as well.
Do you know if it's their intent to cover that 10%?
I do not think they will be covering that 10%, no.
That may bring us more in line with them from the
Right.
get-go.
Right now, do you remember, Larry? I don't remember how much more of the percentage of the premium they're paying than we are on the base plan.
Last year's comparison was about 2% higher than what we are.
Okay. Because I know we got a little closer last year because we did pick that up, that increase. Is that something that the board wants us to explore and look at and see what the ramifications would be, or leave it as is?
Yeah, Mr. Johns provided us that illustration last time about the difference in take-home pay and the difference in VRS. And I think that's something we probably need to share with employees, and if they have a strong feeling about it, they should let us know. I think it's, there are advantages to both, and my guess is that not many people are gonna be terribly, have a strong passion for either one, except the ones, like Mr. John said last time, who are near the end, who would like to see their VRS benefit go up. I think the main concern is that with those staff members that are taking advantage of the family plan and are paying it by a single payer, they're gonna have a hard time. Their take-home pay is gonna be probably less next year, even with the 2% raise. Their take-home pay is probably gonna be less than what it is this year, which is a real concern for us. I mean, for me personally, I think it's a concern for this whole board. I think that's something we have to be very honest about, and I think it's also something that we need to keep in everybody's mind, so that if somebody comes back and says, we don't need a 2% raise, we can certainly say, if we don't get it, we're already gonna lose, some employees are already gonna lose money with a 2% raise. If we don't get a 2% raise, they're gonna lose even more money. It's gonna be costing them to stay here in Powhatan County.
I can certainly give another update to the staff and include that information. We'll make sure that it's information, since we won't be able to talk them through it, that we will make it as easy to understand as possible, through a written communication.
My only concern would be, and I'm certainly an advocate of covering the increase, unless what we intend to cover would somehow overshoot on the county side. And then I fear negative repercussions from the other board, so I don't want to do that, but I want to cover, obviously, as much as possible, the increase. And really, an increase in premiums, to me, is a much smaller impact than a wholesale change from one plan to another. I think that can be pretty devastating, but if we can, do our best to cover the premium increase to the extent that the county does, and maybe end up with equal benefits, to me, that's a good thing.
Okay, we'll do some figuring and see what we can do. The next big change is we had the $298,829 that you see there in red. That is what we currently have estimated as payroll and benefit savings from the combining of the two schools. It is our recommendation at this point that that amount of money be returned to the county, and simply because we were already slated to return that money to the county in fiscal year 19 as a result of the agreement that we made to cut our budget by $650,000 to help with the opening of the middle school. I think that by returning it 2 years early, it's going to give the county flexibility in terms of debt burden and funding that they could then use to issue more bonds, hopefully, to do some of the CIP projects. Remember, we got approval for the middle school and the water needed for the middle school, but our joint transportation facility that we share with the county has not been approved at this point. And there are several other important projects on there that I know the county is still debating, and this may provide, I think it's a goodwill gesture, but I think it's also us pitching in and making sure that we meet the needs of the county. I did send you all Mrs. Weiler's updated CIP plan. There is money in there now for broadband initiative, which I think is fantastic. And there is money to do the transportation facility, or at least that's included in the updated plan, as well as $3 million for the water tower. So I think they are looking at that larger option for the water tower, which certainly has some long-range benefit for the county as well. So that is our recommendation. We had we were gonna keep that in a operating fund for capital reserve, we would still have 219,000 in there for a capital reserve, but that money would be returned, the 298,000 would be returned to the county under our recommendation.
Any other comments on the,
I think
Proposed
you
budget.
stated last time, Dr. Jones, as long as I understand that this is not in addition to $650,000.
Correct.
Later on.
This is the first
This
installment.
is the net between the two would be what we give later on.
Yes, that, we'll make that clear that that's our intent and hopefully understand that.
any other comments on the proposed budget?
There are other documents on there. There's the category budget that's been updated, and of course, the line items that have been updated as well. So all of that information is there for you to look at. It is our intent to seek approval of the recommended budget at our next meeting at the workshop on the 22nd. So if you have any questions or any suggestions before that time, then please let us know, because we will be bringing forward and be looking for a recommendation at that point. And then remember, the next night, we are scheduled to present this budget to the Board of Supervisors in our joint meeting on the 23rd.
So how would that work if we do decide to do something with the premiums on the insurance for the employee? If we were to pick up part of the employer contribution, would you have enough time to accomplish that?
If we find out fairly soon that that's something that we want to look at, then we would be able to make some adjustments in the budget. We could communicate that to you each verbally or in writing, and let you know what it is prior to the recommendation, to give you time to review that. That would be the best option that we had, unless we wanted to schedule another meeting.
I'm speaking only for myself, but I would follow what Mr. Kunkel said. I would really like to see our benefits at least at a parity with what the county offers to their employees.
So would I.
Okay, then that will be a goal, and we'll look to bring that forward when we present the recommended budget. And we'll share that information with you and how we do that, because we'll obviously have to make some adjustments, whether it's through the compensation that we're giving employees over the 5%, or look at what the fuel savings are, look at what other line items are, and we still have the state budget that we need to get. And in one of the versions of the budget, we would get extra money, so that may cover that cost right there. So hopefully they're gonna do that as well.
And I'm going to make one comment about that. If that results in a net decrease to the 293,450, I would propose that decrease go into the salary adjustment bucket.
Okay.
I'm going to call it the bucket. And I'm in agreement with the 2% minimum for all employees, but I have to go back to, the board made a consensus decision last year to, increase to try to bring up certain wage groups or certain job classifications to, an average ranking, and we didn't fully achieve that last year. And I'm hoping to more fully explore an additional option for the 385,969, which, in my opinion, doesn't really, continue in that direction. We haven't changed our direction, to my knowledge, but I think there might be another option that, more fully accomplishes what we set out last year without changing the total dollar amount that's allocated towards salary adjustments. So, the bottom line for me is acceptable. Just a little bit of tweaking in that one area. I would advocate for a little bit more discussion by this board, which probably doesn't have to happen before we approve the final amount.
So, I'd agree with that.
Okay.
I'm still committed to trying to bring those folks up, and this budget does that the way it currently does it. But I would be very reluctant to reduce the 2% for everybody. I've heard loud and clear from several staff members that they felt pretty neglected last year by not getting any kind of a raise.
I don't advocate a reduction of the 2%.
Yeah, is
And
it,
I'm
we're
not
still doing,
suggesting that
yeah,
either.
the
No.
2%
That's
all the
not
way
what
for
I'm saying.
everybody. We're talking about an additional, aren't we?
I'm just
Or
just saying that we need to preserve that 2%, you know, and to be clear that that's our intent, is to preserve the 2% across the board, you know, plus whatever adjustments we can make for those, the positions that we've identified.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm not advocating another meeting. I'm just saying that there seems to be a lot of discussion about compensation and benefits for the employees that we're having right now.
The other,
We're having one more meeting, and then that's the final one, and we're voting on it that night. That seems, I guess that's a question for Dr. Jones, but.
Well, I think as Mr. Kunka said, I mean, if that's the pot of money that we're gonna be making adjustments with, then the board can come back and we're gonna have to approve a final budget anyway after the Board of Supervisors and after we reconcile with the state. So we could make some adjustments. We have presented this information 3 or 4 times, so if there are changes that the board desires, then we need to hear what those are so that we can work on it. In my mind, this does accomplish what the board's goals were of moving everybody 2% up, and then anybody who's below the median, moving them up 5%, so,
The
or up
lowest.
to 5%.
The lowest
The lo-
people on the scales will be, I mean.
Right, the ones who
Because
are
that's what we
below.
did last year. We
Correct.
took the lowest and we bumped them up.
Right,
And there's still people that weren't affected last year that are the lowest, and we're still bumping them up.
correct.
This year is
Right.
our goal.
And we're moving everybody that's below that median at the lowest up to a maximum of 5%. So if there's adjustments that we need to make beyond that, or we want to exclude some, or do some less, or do some more, then at some point, we'll need to have that conversation so that we can take a look at that.
well, and if we do that, you know, it's almost, I think we're almost, we're gonna have to do another public hearing.
Right.
Because you're changing what you're proposing in the budget that you approved. I mean, I don't feel good as a board member making that decision without allowing the public to have a comment on that. You know, so if I'm on the list to get a 5% raise and all of a sudden I'm eliminated down to 3%, I need to have the right to comment on that.
I agree with Mr. Cole.
And
I
I
do.
think the other thing we need to keep in mind is, Mr. Kunka's right, it's a pot of money, we'll look at it. But, you know, we cannot jump to the conclusion that the Board of Supervisors is gonna give us all this money at this point. You know,
No.
so we may be going back,
to the drawing
making some
board.
adjustments, you know, that we hadn't anticipated making. So I don't think there's anything we can do, except, you know, I think it's okay at this point to go forward with what we have. If we wanna make some changes, we hold another public hearing as we approve our final budget. But we're not going, you know, until we get a number from the Board of Supervisors and the state, we don't know what that final budget is. So I think doing anything else at this point is almost premature.
Okay. I'm fine with it as long as we're having the discussion. I think it's important that we talk about the issue.
Yeah, I think it's a good discussion.
Yes, sir.
And then if we do get more in this pot, not for salaries,
Right.
you know, from the General Assembly, I appreciate you getting the instructional assistants, the cost for that, to an email to us. And if we do get additional, that I would really like to see us get, one assistant for kindergarten, one per 2 classrooms.
Okay.
Additional. And then also, I wanted to ask, my second thing was the, slide 12, under textbooks, how does that work with teachers are saying that for guided reading, they would like to have the little books. I guess a lot of them, copy them.
Right.
Which they are able to do, but getting those books, guided reading book sets, so that all the schools can share, like when I was teaching, we had a special section in the library that was just for teachers to check out for these books. Where would that sort of thing come from?
It's not under textbooks, 'cause textbooks are books that you adopt that are actually
Okay.
part of the curriculum. Dr. Thomas, you want to share some information on that? I know that we just purchased some leveled readers that could be used, and each teacher got a set of those last summer, I believe, so that would be available.
Yes, and they would go through their reading coach within their building. They have put together an inventory to know what is in the building. But as Dr. Jones said, it's not really a textbook, but it is used in their
So-
And that they would work through their reading coach to get the appropriate materials. I will say, over the last 2 years, we have really invested in trying to get a lot of the leveled readers as we have been working with staff on the guided reading.
So this would come out of the
It's-
reading coach's budget?
It would
Is
be,
that how it-
or the school's instructional materials
School
budget.
instructional materials, okay.
Instructional materials, and in the budget, you saw where each school had a language arts, a
Mhm.
math, a science.
Mhm.
Some of those funds could be used as well, particularly for nonfiction, if they were working on a certain area. But as they work through with their coaches and what we're trying to do with their professional development, if they have a need, we will be committed to addressing that.
Okay, well, again, if the pot gives
Yep.
us more money, that would be great. I think it's wonderful that, you know, when you're younger and you copy the book, the kids can practice at home. But when you get to, like, second grade, you know, it's better just to have the
Yep.
books. And for sharing, you know, check out for sharing. So, thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, I just had
Ms. Ayers?
a comment that, I'm not in disagreement. I would love to have teachers' assistants in all of our classrooms in the elementary level, but I think just to fund teachers' assistants in the kindergarten level alone, isn't that not close to $500,000 with
It was-
payroll and benefits?
I think it
or-
was over 400,000, if I remember correctly. But again, we could look at, if it's the pleasure of the board, whether it's one for every 2 or 3 classrooms and they're split, that would just be, you know, the pleasure of the board for us to make that commitment. We have, traditionally, as I explained in my communication to you, our philosophy has been that we put instructional assistants where they're needed, whether it's based on class size, larger size in a particular year, or if there's student needs based on student behaviors or student reading needs, we would place additional instructional assistants into classrooms, and we haven't done it across the board in every classroom. But again, that's the philosophy that it's been. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the philosophy moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Thank you very much.
This brings us to public comment period. At this point, if anybody wishes to address the board on any subject, there is a time limit of 3 minutes per individual, 5 minutes per group. If you do approach the podium, please state your name and address for the record. And seeing no movement, I will close the public comment period. That brings us to some closed session items. Mr. Cole, could you make a motion to take us into closed session, please?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we move to a closed meeting pursuant to Code 2.2-3711A1 to discuss the employment, resignation, and leave of specific employees pursuant to Code 2.23711A2 and A4 to discuss the expulsion and placement of specific students. Codes 2.2-3711A1, A2, and A4.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're temporarily into closed session. We'll be back in this room in about a half hour. Can I have a motion to,
You got 5 minutes.
yeah, but we gotta come out. Oh, that's right. Closed session.
You're right.
We've got to finish up our other
Yep,
meeting, right?
yep. My
Can I have a
fault.
motion to come out of closed session?
I make a motion, we come out of closed session.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Cole, would you read the certification?
Yes, sir. Whereas the Powhatan County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Powhatan County School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies. And only public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered. Aye.
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 Okay, that brings us to our items for discussion, next steps and follow-up items. I'm going to begin with our student liaison, Mr. Mulcarrick. Do you have anything for the board?
Yes, I'd like to follow up on a few activities going on at the school. As of recent, first off, just like to congratulate Colin Girardi, our state champion wrestling, and of course, our Elijah Jordan, our runner-up. On February 23rd, we have an FFA appreciation dinner. I was quoted on a good time for fellowship and good community involvement in that. So, of course, something we'd look to continue into the next year. At the PHS and PJHS Choral Pyramid Concert also took place on the same night. It was a success, and everybody seemed to enjoy it, both parents and spectators alike. Show Choir Classic and their trip to Chicago, of course, they put in a lot of time to their studies and doing what they do, dancing and whatnot, and it all seemed to pay off as well there. This Thursday and Friday as well, we do have a blood drive at PHS. It's open to the public, so if anybody in attendance would like to give blood, we encourage you, if you have the time, of course, PHS, Thursday and Friday.
What time is that?
It begins at 9, and I believe it runs through, I couldn't give you an end time, but I could refer you to anybody that's interested.
Thank you.
Okay, of course, Mr. Sneed's in attendance. We'd like to give you good luck with your concert band at assessment this weekend, because the Powhatan has the potential to be a blue ribbon school this year with earning a superior. As well, our PHS Science Olympiad team is qualified for states, our 3rd year in a row. Leadership Week is approaching in April, and we're going to look forward to continuing involvement in that, especially through NHS and a lot of other clubs and sponsors, and getting out the opportunity and the opportunity to present leadership in our school. As well, a lot of the sports teams have been finalized, so congratulations to anybody in attendance who's made their sports team. And lastly, there's a movement gaining ground at PHS. It's called PHS Pacer, and it's basically creating for a, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words right now, an AED, for down at the field house. So any cardiac arrhythmias can be treated, of course, down there. We don't currently have one. And in terms of safety, that's something that we like to accomplish. We recently had a volleyball tournament there, raising money for it, and it was deemed to be a good success for it as well. So that's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mulcarrick.
Yes, of course.
Mr. Walters?
Very nice job. The follow-up that I would have tonight is, it is wonderful to see a crowd as large as this in the auditorium this evening for one of our meetings. We appreciate each of you being here. I would encourage you to take the time to go to the Board of Supervisors meetings as well, because while we will talk about the school's budget tonight, the Board of Supervisors has not yet voted on the county's budget, which does include our school and the various capital improvement plans or projects. So take the time to go to their meetings as well, and please make sure that your Board of Supervisors members know how you feel about those various issues. And again, thank you for being here tonight, because it is wonderful to sit up here and look at an auditorium full of people that are here to talk about the schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Ms. Ayers?
Is this next steps also?
Next steps and follow-up for
Okay.
the,
I would just like to bring to the board's attention that I met with someone from the Freedom Flag Organization that is in remembrance of 9/11, and that this is the 15th year anniversary of that tragedy and attack on our nation. And they actually are offering to our board, to Powhatan County, a teaching cart that actually has a piece of steel from the Twin
Tracy.
Towers. They have laminated material, then it would be just something that our teachers would have to incorporate into their lessons, but it is free. And if we don't accept it, it's going to go maybe into the private school system, and I would rather our public school system have access to that. And just the fact that this is the 15-year anniversary, I do think very adamantly that we need to keep that in the forefront of all of our minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ayers. And just a comment, I believe I saw that artifact at the District 2 Firehouse on Election Day. It's
Okay.
a moving thing to see that.
Okay.
Ms. Emo?
I'm going to pass until the 7 o'clock meeting.
Okay. Mr. Cole?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing I want to say is, this is Music in Our Schools Month and Youth Art Month, and you won't be here when we have comments at the end, so I want to tell you right now, congratulations to you, and we really appreciate the efforts that you put into what you do. We know music and art are your passions, and we also very much appreciate the leadership shown by our staff in those programs. We've got excellent programs, and it's a result of a collaboration between students and staff and the community, and congratulations to you. The second thing is the next steps, and just in light of what I'm hearing and what I'm reading in the paper, I want to see, I'd like to see our board take a look at what we're doing right now for drug education and drug prevention, and maybe look to see whether there are things that we need to be doing to strengthen that program.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. The only thing I have, other than I'll echo the congratulations to everybody in attendance. We had a little bit of a discussion earlier on in the meeting about the budget and exactly how we may be tweaking some money here and there for health insurance premiums. And one of the categories of salary adjustments, not the 2%, but the amount that is above 2%. And I just would ask that we have an appropriate discussion of that so that people can have input to it, and before we have to make a decision that is binding on that bottom line figure. I don't intend to change the bottom line figure, but I think this board should have that discussion publicly, and that's all I have. Dr. Jones, did you have anything?
Nothing at this time.
All right, then I'm gonna, since we're running a couple minutes late, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn the workshop at this point.
So moved?
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.